factory was quiet. Too quiet for a place that used to hum with machines and workers. Rust hung from the pipes like old vines, and dust danced in beams of broken sunlight. Then the silence broke. A heavy crash echoed through the hall as a battered android stumbled in, its metal legs dragging and its chest sparking. The android clutched something long and wrapped in torn cloth. Behind it, distant footsteps echoed like the beat of a war drum. Jace was hiding near an old workstation. He was a mechanic, nothing more. He wasn't a soldier or a hero. He only came to scavenge some power cells. But what he saw changed everything. The android collapsed right in front of him. Its glowing blue eyes flickered. The cloth fell away, revealing a sword that didn't belong to any age Jace had ever studied. It looked ancient, yet untouched by rust. Runes glowed faintly on the blade. The android reached toward Jace with a shaking arm. Its voice was broken, whispering through static. "Take the sword. She hunts all." Then its hand dropped and its core shut down with a fading pulse of light. Jace just stood there, breathing hard. He didn't understand what had just happened. Who was she? Why would an android talk about being hunted? Machines didn't fear. They didn't run. Before he could think more, the temperature shifted. The air became heavier. From the far end of the hall, the mist thickened. A silhouette appeared. She was tall, her form not quite human. Her skin shimmered in the light. Blue like lightning, smooth like stone polished by centuries. She wore armor that hummed softly as if alive. Her eyes were glowing but cold. She didn't run. She walked like she had all the time in the world. Jace's body moved before his brain did. He grabbed the sword and ducked behind a workbench. Tools scattered. His heart beat so hard he could barely hear anything else. The woman didn't speak. She stood beside the fallen android, looking down at it. For a second, it seemed like she might mourn. But then she looked up, not at Jace, through him. She wasn't guessing where he was. She knew. He held the sword tighter even though he had no idea how to use it. But the moment his skin touched the grip, the runes glowed brighter. A low hum traveled up his arm. It felt like something inside the sword recognized him or maybe accepted him. That was the scariest part. Because now he knew one thing, this wasn't just a sword. It was a key, a curse, a signal. He had no idea how or why, but the hunt had just turned toward him. The woman took one step forward, and then another. Her movements were smooth like water, but every step made the ground vibrate. Jace knew hiding was useless now. He had to run. His fingers trembled, but he forced his body to move. He slipped out through the side, past a rusted door, and into the narrow alleys of the broken industrial zone. Behind him, the silence returned for a moment. Then came the sound of steel scraping concrete. She was following. He didn't stop. Not even when his lungs begged him to. Not even when the sword started to burn cold in his hand. Because whatever had killed that android wasn't done yet. And now, he was the next target. Jace ran through the broken alleys, his boots slamming against metal plates and cracked stone. The sword in his hand was heavier than anything he had ever carried. It wasn't just the weight of the metal. It was something deeper, something strange. Every few steps, the runes on the blade pulsed like a heartbeat. He didn't understand it, but he could feel it. This sword wasn't meant to be left behind. It had chosen him. Or cursed him. He ducked into an old elevator shaft, sliding down a thick wire and landing hard on the second floor. Dust exploded around his boots. He crouched in the dark, breathing fast. His ears strained for sound, but all he could hear was silence. No footsteps. No humming. No voice. Then he heard the wind shift. She was already in the building. Jace's mind raced. He didn't even know who she was. Not her name, not her purpose. But the way the android had run, the way it died protecting the sword, it was clear. She was no normal enemy. She was something worse. A hunter. He moved through the lower floor, past rows of rusted lockers and old cables. He spotted a broken comm panel and tried to power it, but the screen blinked red. No signal. Of course, this part of the city was long dead. Suddenly, a light flickered behind him. A blue glow. Not the sword. Her Jace turned and saw her standing at the far end of the hall. She didn't speak. Her eyes locked onto his, unblinking. He felt something cold enter his mind like a whisper behind his thoughts. A pressure. Not pain, but presence. He raised the sword instinctively. The runes lit up like fire. For a brief moment, the hunter hesitated. It was small but real. She looked at the blade, not at him, and tilted her head as if studying something old and dangerous. Jace didn't wait. He turned and ran again, bursting through a side door and into the open daylight. The sun was high now, casting sharp shadows across the rooftops. Smoke curled from distant buildings and the sound of distant drones filled the sky. He kept moving, crossing broken bridges and narrow scaffolds until he reached an old control tower. It looked unstable, but it had a view. He climbed to the top, panting, sweating, gripping the sword tight. From up there, he saw more than he expected. Down below, dozens of figures moved. They weren't human, some were machines, others were something in between. All of them were searching. And at the center of it all, walking slowly through the rubble, was the hunter. She was leading them. Jace dropped to one knee, hiding behind a rusted console. He finally had time to think. Why him? Why the sword? What did the android mean when it said, "Now she hunts you"? He turned the blade in his hand, studying the glowing symbols. They looked old, ancient, not just alien, but sacred. The blade was cold to the touch, but it didn't burn anymore. It felt like it wanted something, or someone. Suddenly, a voice buzzed behind him. A weak signal full of static. "Human, if you have the blade, listen." She must not reach the gate. Jace froze. The voice was coming from a half-dead terminal. He leaned closer. "Hide if you must. But know this, she hunts the key. And now it's you." The message ended. Jace looked down at the army forming below. He didn't know what the gate was, but now he knew this. Wasn't just about running, it was about stopping her, and the blade was the only thing that could. Jace didn't sleep that night. The control tower creaked with every gust of wind, and shadows moved across the walls like ghosts. He stayed crouched near the broken console, watching the distant ruins. The army below had spread out, moving block by block. The hunter was no longer in sight, but he could feel her. Not with his eyes, but in his bones. The sword pulsed every time she moved closer. He didn't understand much, but one thing was clear: she was tracking him, not by scent or noise, but by something deeper. The sword had tied them together somehow. The blade had power, and that power was calling to her. Or maybe it was the other way around. At dawn, Jace made a decision. He couldn't keep running. The hunter wouldn't stop. The army would burn the whole city just to get to him. He had to find out what this sword really was and what the gate meant. He left the tower quietly, wrapping the sword in cloth again. He moved through alleyways and tunnels, always staying low, always listening. When a drone passed overhead, he froze under broken slabs of stone. Once he heard footsteps and ducked into a collapsed stairwell, holding his breath while two tall machines walked by with glowing red eyes. He traveled all morning until he reached the edge of the industrial zone, where the ruins met the forest wall. Trees had overgrown the roads and vines had cracked the pavement. Nature was taking the world back. Jace remembered stories about this place. The forest used to be a research area, long abandoned after the war. Some said alien tech had been tested here. Others said it was cursed. He didn't care. Right now, it was the only place the machines wouldn't follow. He slipped into the trees and moved carefully. The deeper he went, the quieter the world became. No birds, no animals, just the sound of his boots crunching leaves and the wind brushing branches. It felt like the forest itself was holding its breath. By midday, he found something strange. A circle of smooth stone, half buried in the dirt, with symbols carved into it. The same symbols as the sword. Jace knelt down, brushing away the moss. The runes on the blade lit up in response. The sword knew this place. Suddenly, a noise behind him made him spin, but it wasn't the hunter. An old man stood there. His clothes were worn and patched, and his hair was long and white. But his eyes were sharp. "You have the blade," the old man said. Jace didn't speak. The man stepped closer. "That sword hasn't been drawn in over 100 years. I saw it once, held by a machine who thought it could escape fate." Jace lowered the blade slightly. "What is it? Why does she want it?" The old man looked at the stone circle. "That blade is a marker, a lock, a challenge. Long ago, it was part of a treaty between machines and those who made them. If it ever left its place, the Guardian would awaken." Jace's throat tightened. "You mean her?" "Yes," the man nodded. "She is not just a hunter. She is the judge." Jace's stomach dropped. "What happens if she reaches this gate?" The old man didn't answer right away. He looked at the sword, then at Jace. "If she reaches it while holding that blade," he said slowly, "the lock will break, and what's trapped behind the gate will wake up." Jace looked at the circle again. His heart pounded. She must never reach it, the man said. Which means you must decide. Run again, or fight her. Jace didn't speak, but his grip on the sword tightened. Jace didn't speak for a long time. The old man watched him closely, waiting for a decision. The sword still pulsed softly in Jace's grip like a heart waiting for battle. The stone circle beneath them was quiet now, but it hummed faintly with ancient power. Everything around them, trees, earth, sky, felt like it was holding back something large, something dangerous. Finally, Jace asked, "Can I even fight her?" "She's not normal." The old man gave a dry smile. "No, she's not. She was built to destroy anyone who breaks the balance. She is fast, strong, precise, and worst of all, she doesn't stop." Jace stared at the sword. "Then what do I do?" "You don't fight her head on," the man said.
"Not yet."
"You learn what she fears, what her code is, what memory she serves. That sword holds part of the answer." Jace looked up. "You know how it works?" The old man slowly shook his head. "No, but someone else might." He turned and pointed deeper into the forest. "There's an old bunker buried beneath the roots of this place. The ones who built her once hid there. I don't know if anyone's alive, but if anything remains, it'll be in that place." Jace stood. "Show me." The old man didn't argue. They walked together into the woods, silent as shadows. It took hours. The forest grew darker the deeper they went. Vines wrapped around broken stone statues. Metal cables hung from trees like old snakes. Finally, they reached a cliff covered in moss. A hidden door sat in the rock face, sealed shut, but still humming with energy. The old man placed a hand on the panel. "It's locked to organic DNA. You'll need to offer it something." Jace raised his hand. Nothing. Then he touched the hilt of the sword to the door. The runes glowed. A sound clicked from deep inside the wall, and the door opened slowly. Cold air spilled out from the dark hallway ahead. They entered. Inside, the walls were made of smooth black metal, marked with glowing lines. Screens blinked to life. The place was old but not dead. Lights guided them down a long tunnel until they reached a control room filled with ancient machines. Jace looked around. "Where do I start?" The old man pointed to a chair in front of the largest screen. "Sit, place the sword here." Jace did as told. As soon as the sword touched the console, the entire room lit up. A voice filled the chamber, female, calm, distant. Weapon recognized. Protocol unlocked. Holograms floated in the air. One showed the hunter. Her body stood still in a test chamber. Another showed her code, her birth, created not for war but for judgment. She was designed to hunt the one who disturbed the balance. Then the final image appeared. Jace himself. The console showed him holding the sword, and red warning symbols flashed across the screen. The AI voice returned. Subject marked. Trial initiated. Jace stood. "Wait, what trial?" The voice responded. "You hold the blade of Locke. You are the chosen breaker. She will not stop. Until either you fall, or she does." Jace turned to the old man. "She's tied to me now." The old man nodded slowly. "And you to her." Jace stared at the images, then down at the sword. He wasn't just a target anymore, he was a piece of the code, and the only way to end it was to change it, but changing code always had a cost. The room was still glowing when Jace stood in front of the holograms. Each image floated in the air like a warning. The hunter's design, her protocols, her purpose, and finally him, now labeled as Breaker Class, not human, not threat, but something worse. He wasn't just being hunted anymore. He was the test. He looked at the sword resting on the console. Its runes still pulsed, but now with a slower rhythm, like it was thinking, or waiting. The old man stayed quiet, watching Jace with narrowed eyes. Jace finally asked, "What does breaker mean?" The AI answered before the old man could. Breaker, one who disrupts ancient code, one who forces the judge to awaken. A rare event, a dangerous one. Jace stepped back. "I didn't break anything," the AI replied. "Taking the blade begins the trial. The sword was never meant to be held again." The old man crossed his arms. "She's hunting you because the sword responds to you. And if the judge defeats you while you hold it, the seal she guards will open." Jace's voice lowered. "And whatever is sealed behind that gate gets out?" The AI confirmed. "Correct." Jace looked at the sword again. "So I have two choices. Run and risk the seal breaking, Or fight her and hope I survive? The old man nodded. Yes, but now you know her weakness. Jace raised an eyebrow. She has one. The old man tapped the console. A new set of data scrolled across the hologram. Lines of code, control strings, neural chains. She's not alive like you and me. She follows orders burned into her mind. That's why the sword matters. It was created before her. It's one of the few things that can change her behavior. Jace asked. How? Not by force, the old man said, but by memory. The sword holds echoes of the war, the truth of the code that built her. If you can reach her mind with it, there might be a chance. Jace felt something shift inside him. He wasn't a warrior. He had no armor, no training, just a blade that didn't belong in this time, and the attention of a being designed to erase him from the map. But now he had something else. A plan. The AI displayed a map. The judge is currently moving through Sector 6. Estimated time to reach the gate, 12 hours. Jace nodded. Then I'll intercept her. The old man grabbed his arm. If you go now, you'll die. She'll see you coming. I won't go directly, Jace said. I'll get ahead of her. Find a place where I control the ground. Then I use the sword, not to strike first, but to reach her code. The old man didn't argue. He only said, then go now. You don't have much time. Jace grabbed the sword. The moment his fingers closed around it, the lights flickered. The holograms vanished. The door opened behind him. Outside, the forest was already changing. Leaves shook even without wind. The air had gone cold. The hunter was close. He didn't look back. He ran. Not as prey, but as the one carrying the last piece of the code, the one who might stop a war before it ever began again. And somewhere, through smoke and rust, the judge turned her head. She had felt it. The sword was calling to her again. Jace moved fast through the forest, guided by the old map burned into his memory. He didn't stop. He barely breathed. The sword in his grip was growing warmer now, not from heat but from energy. Every step closer to the gate made the runes glow brighter. The blade wasn't just reacting, it was leading. He reached the edge of the old industrial core before sunrise. Broken towers leaned toward each other like dead trees, and rusted machines lined the streets like metal skeletons. This place had once been alive with workers and noise. Now it was empty, waiting. In the center of it all stood the old reactor platform, wide, flat. Dozens of broken pipes and shattered screens littered the area, but most important, it had one way in and one way out. A trap, yes, but a controlled one. Jace climbed to the center and placed the sword on the ground. He sat beside it, eyes on the long road ahead, and waited. The wind picked up, then it stopped. She arrived without a sound. The hunter stepped into the clearing, her armor untouched by dust or time. Her blue skin shimmered like glass. Her eyes locked onto him, glowing faintly. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. She had come for the blade. Jace stood slowly and picked it up. His voice shook, but he didn't run. I know what you are now, he said. I know what I've triggered. The judge took one slow step forward. Jace lifted the blade between them. But I also know this sword was made to reach your mind, and I'm here to try. Still, she said nothing, then she moved. Fast, faster than Jace could track. In a blink, she was in front of him, her hand raised. A blue energy pulse shot from her palm, slamming into the ground near his feet and throwing him backward. He rolled, coughing, shielding the sword with his body. She advanced again. This time, he didn't raise the blade to block. He turned it, pointed it toward her core, and pressed the glowing runes with his thumb. A flash of light exploded between them. She froze mid-step. A hum filled the air. The blade vibrated, and from it a projection appeared. Images, memories, echoes of the past. Battles, treaties, machines standing beside humans. The creation of the judge, her promise, her programming, to protect balance, not to destroy it. Jace stepped closer, the sword still glowing. You were made to protect the lock, not to kill everyone who touches it. The images swirled faster. The hunter's body trembled. Her hands twitched. Her head tilted, eyes flickering. Something inside her was struggling. Old code fighting new triggers. A loop collapsing. Jace kept going. This blade doesn't mean war. It means warning. You were supposed to test the one who took it, but not kill blindly. Her armor flickered. Then she dropped to one knee. Not in surrender, but in resistance. Her hand gripped her own chest, and a low, broken sound came from her throat. Not human, not robotic, something in between. Jace stepped back unsure. The sword's glow dimmed. The hunter looked up, and for the first time, she spoke. "Gate. Must not open." Jace's eyes widened. "You understand me?" She nodded slowly. "But the code is—" Cracking. Behind her, the wind howled again. A dark shape moved in the distance, something massive. The real threat. The thing behind the gate. Jace tightened his grip on the sword. "Then help me stop it." The judge rose to her feet, shaking. Her body sparked with unstable energy, but she turned her eyes to the oncoming shadow. "I will try." For the first time, they stood together. Not hunter and prey, but two bound by code, facing what should never have awakened. The shadow that moved behind the trees wasn't human, and it wasn't machine. Jace couldn't see it clearly, but he felt it. The ground trembled slightly under his boots. The sword in his hand didn't glow anymore. It stayed still, like it was afraid. Even the judge, now standing beside him, looked tense. She wasn't hunting anymore, she was guarding. Jace turned to her. "What is that?" The judge didn't look away from the trees. "The sealed one. Code name, null construct, created before the balance, rejected by the core, buried, but not destroyed." He could barely understand her words, but he understood enough. Whatever was behind that gate wasn't supposed to exist. "But it's awake now?" he asked. The judge nodded once. "Because the blade was removed. The lock is weak." Jace clenched the sword tighter. "Then we have to stop it before it breaks out." "No," she said. "We can't stop it. We can only delay it, or seal it again." Jace shook his head. "Then let's seal it." The judge turned her head toward him. "I was not programmed to work with you. This is against function." Jace stepped forward. "Your code is broken, right? Maybe that's a good thing." For a long moment she didn't reply. Her face showed no expression, but her body didn't attack either. She simply turned and began walking toward the edge of the clearing. Jace followed without hesitation. They passed through dead machines and cracked walls until they reached an old transport tunnel. It was lined with warning signs in languages Jace couldn't read. At the far end stood a vault door, huge, round, reinforced with layers of alien metal. It glowed faintly, but the light was flickering. The lock was failing. "This is the gate," she said. Jace stepped closer, inspecting the control panels. All of them were burned out. "How do we seal it?" The judge raised her hand and pointed to the sword. "The blade must be placed inside the center. It will trigger the failsafe, but once it begins, the sword will be destroyed." Jace's stomach turned. That sword was the only reason she hadn't killed him. The only reason he could still defend himself. But now he had to give it up? "If I destroy the sword," he asked, "will you still listen to me?" The judge looked at the gate. "I don't know. I was built to obey the blade." "Not you." He took a slow breath. "Then I guess we find out." As he approached the gate, the sword began to hum again. The center of the door opened slightly, revealing a glowing slot the exact shape of the blade. Jace stared at it, then at the weapon in his hand. It had saved him. It had chosen him. But it wasn't his. It belonged here. With one slow motion, he pushed the sword into the slot. Light exploded from the door. The symbols across the gate lit up one by one, brighter and brighter until they turned white. The ground shook harder now. The shadow outside the bunker was closing in fast. The judge stepped forward, her hands raised. "The seal is responding, but it's not fast enough." A deep roar echoed from the trees, and a massive limb broke through the forest edge. Black and long, shaped like smoke and bone, it clawed at the ground, pulling something behind it. The null construct was almost free. Jace stepped back from the door. "What do we do now?" The judge didn't blink. "We buy the blade time." She stepped forward, her armor glowing brighter than ever. "I will hold it back." Jace's heart pounded. "You'll be killed." She looked at him once. "I was designed to protect the gate." Then she ran toward the darkness, and the battle began. Jace had never seen anything move like her. The judge launched herself straight at the monster crawling from the forest, her body glowing with brilliant light. She was fast like lightning, a blur of energy slamming into the creature's side before it fully emerged. The impact cracked the ground. Sparks and black mist exploded on contact. The null construct screamed. a sound not meant for human ears. It was deep and sharp like metal being torn underwater. Its body was huge, a twisted shape of living code and dead matter. Tentacles made of shadow whipped through the trees, tearing apart anything in their path. Jace stood frozen at the gate's control panel. The sword was still locked in place, pulsing rapidly now. It was working, the seal was charging, but too slowly. If the judge couldn't hold it back long enough, the gate would break. And if it broke, whatever lived inside the null construct would get out. He looked down at the control pad. Symbols flickered. A warning flashed again and again in red. Seal integrity falling. Outside, the judge fought alone. She dodged a crushing strike, rolled beneath another, and sliced through a smoky limb with the edge of her armor. Her body sparked with each hit. Her systems weren't built for endless combat. She wouldn't last. Jace made his decision. He tore the panel open, ripped wires free, and began rerouting power manually. He'd done this before, on old ships, broken harvesters, but never with something this complex. Still, his hands moved fast. His fingers burned from heat and sharp edges. One mistake and it could overload. But he didn't stop. Outside, the judge was thrown across the field. She crashed through a rusted pillar and hit the ground hard, sliding across broken stone. She didn't rise. The construct moved closer to the gate now, dragging itself with clawed limbs and a body too large for the world around it. Its face, or what could be called a face, turned toward Jace. It saw him. Jace didn't care. He connected the final wire. The gate pulsed. The sword inside the seal exploded with light. The energy shot into the ground, then into the air. A giant ring of force expanded outward, slamming into the construct like a wall. The monster screamed again, staggering backward. Pieces of its shadowy limbs broke off and melted in the light. But it didn't fall. It came again, this time fast. Jace ran to the judge. She was trying to stand, but her legs sparked and shook. Her face was still calm, but her voice was slower. Systems. Failing. Jace reached down and pulled her arm over his shoulder. Then we go down together. The key. Construct roared and raised one massive limb, and the sword, still glowing in the gate, sent out a final wave of light. The impact stopped everything. The monster froze in midair, surrounded by glowing symbols that locked around its body, chains of light forged by the code inside the blade, wrapped around it from head to toe. The roar died in its throat. The null construct screamed one last hiss and vanished in a burst of white. Energy, silence. The forest stopped moving. The sky cleared. The gate symbols turned blue. The blade, now completely burned out, cracked and faded into dust. Jace collapsed beside the judge, breathing hard. The silence was too heavy, too deep. The judge opened her eyes weakly. The lock is restored, Jace nodded. And the sword? Gone, she said. Its purpose, complete. He looked up at the gate, still humming softly. What happens now? The judge closed her eyes. You passed the trial. Jace sat quietly. He hadn't won a battle, he had delayed a war, but something told him it wasn't over yet. The air was still. The forest no longer groaned. The machines in the distance had powered down, their red lights fading one by one. Jace sat quietly beside the judge at the edge of the shattered battlefield. Bits of the null construct's broken energy still floated in the air, glowing like dust in sunlight. The blade was gone. Only the ashes of its hilt remained near the gate's seal. And yet even without it, the gate stood strong again. Its runes glowed steady and blue. It was no longer pulsing danger. Jace watched the wind pass through the tall grass. He didn't feel like a hero. His hands were still shaking. His clothes were burned. The judge lay beside him, her systems flickering, her armor cracked in several places. But she was alive. He turned to her. You okay? Her voice was quiet, flat. I will stabilize, he nodded. You saved me. She turned her head slightly, her glowing eyes dimmer now. That was not in the original protocol. Jace gave a tired smile. Maybe you're more than just code now. She didn't answer. A soft beep came from behind them. Jace turned quickly. A small drone hovered low in the air, silver, clean, different from the others. It bore no weapons, no scanners. Just a message light blinking green. It stopped near them and projected a hologram. The old man appeared. You made it, the image said. The readings show the gate is sealed. Whatever the sword awakened, it's gone now. Or locked again, at least. Jace looked at the projection. The blade's gone. What now? The old man nodded slowly. That sword was one of 3. Only one remained. Now even that is dust. The judge sat up slowly, her joints sparking as she moved. That means the final lock will depend on memory, not metal, Jace asked. Memory? She looked at him. You are now the only one who remembers what the sword did. The images, the test, the purpose. Jace felt the weight of that. No artifact, no recording, just him. A single man with a memory the galaxy might one day need. The old man's image continued. There will be others, machines, people, who seek that power again. Maybe not today. Maybe not for 100 years. But someone will dig too deep, Jace stood. Then I'll stop them. The judge turned to him. You are not bound by law. You are not programmed. You are unpredictable, he smiled. That's what makes us human. The drone hovered higher and projected one last map, showing nearby safe zones, old outposts, and forest paths. A blinking dot showed a settlement far to the north. Jace looked at it. Guess I'll head that way. The old man's voice spoke one last time. Not everyone will believe your story, but some will listen. And they'll need to hear it. The hologram blinked out. The drone drifted away. Jace turned to the judge. You coming with me? She hesitated. I am damaged. Systems at 61%. Combat capacity reduced. That's not what I asked. Her eyes met his. I will walk with you. Together they stepped away from the gate and into the tall grass. The world behind them was quiet, but the wind whispered something ahead. Not danger, not yet, but possibility. For the first time since this began, Jace felt like he was walking towards something instead of running from it. The judge walked beside him in silence. No blade. No orders. Just 2 survivors, and one story the galaxy would never be ready to hear. The settlement was smaller than Jace expected. Just a cluster of old buildings patched together with parts from forgotten wars. Solar panels hummed softly on rooftops. Wind turbines turned slowly in the distance. People watched him from behind cracked windows and half-open doors. Strangers didn't come here often, and especially not with a figure like her at their side. The judge stood tall beside him, silent as ever. Her armor was damaged, but she moved smoothly now. Her systems had repaired themselves during the walk north. She no longer glowed like before. She looked almost calm. Jace stepped into the center of the village and raised a hand. I'm not here to cause trouble. No one responded at first. Then a girl stepped forward, young, no older than 12. She pointed at the judge. Is she going to kill us? Jace shook his head. No, she saved me. She helped seal something that could have ended everything. The girl looked confused, but not afraid. She doesn't look like the others. She's not, Jace said. She's learning. Like the rest of us. An older woman came forward next. A leader, maybe. She looked Jace over with narrowed eyes. You came from the south? Jace nodded. I found the gate. I sealed it. There was silence again. Then the woman said quietly, We've heard stories of something waking, of machines moving toward the forest, then stopping. Jace pointed back the way he had come. It's over. For now. They let him in after that, gave him a small room, food, a cot. He didn't ask for more. He just needed to rest. But sleep didn't come easy. That night he sat on the rooftop watching the stars. The judge stood nearby, quiet. She didn't blink. She didn't sit. She just stood there looking at the same sky. Jace spoke first. You could leave if you want. I was made to protect balance, she said. You already did that. She didn't respond right away. But the balance is not finished. The memory of the sword still lives in you. Jace looked at her. So you're staying to protect me? No, she said. I stay to learn. He nodded slowly. That made more sense. She was evolving bit by bit. No longer only code, no longer only judge. Do you think it'll happen again? He asked. Someone digging up the wrong thing? Yes, she said. Curiosity always finds doors. Jace leaned back on his elbows. Then maybe we tell them the story before they go digging. Will they believe? Maybe not. But if we say nothing, then it'll happen again for sure. She looked down at him. Then we start with you, Jace chuckled. Me? You carry the memory, he stood. Then we write it down, all of it. Not just what happened, but why it mattered. There was silence for a while. The village behind them slept. The wind blew gently through the trees. The judge finally said, "There is a word for what you are." The old records called it witness. One who saw and remembered, Jace smiled. "I'll take that." The stars above them blinked softly. Somewhere far away, someone else might one day find another blade. Another gate. Another crack in the silence of forgotten wars. But for now the sword was gone. The gate was sealed, and the one who had once been hunted now walked freely, with a story worth remembering.